All right, it's time to wrap up the 2014 season in a bow. Greg, I'd like to start with you. This was your first season here in the Valley. Well, I want to get your impressions of Valley football and the tradition, the history that you learned about, the games that you actually saw. What were your thoughts about 2014 here?
Right. Well, when you think about the quality overall, this week shows you some things, but I think that doesn't speak necessarily to how good the season was. I saw a lot of games that I thought were pretty entertaining and pretty interesting, and a lot of teams that I thought were very strong and very talented. You talk about like Weslaco East and like McCallum Memorial. So, you know, I was pretty impressed overall, and then obviously you get the fans, people down here are pretty into it. So I enjoyed the year. I'm looking forward to next season already.
Well, let's talk about the games of the year. Joe, you went out and saw more games than probably anybody alive. What were your thoughts? What was your favorite game to see this year? What were the games of the year for you?
Well, I got to start down on a Saturday night when I was just kind of trolling along down there, you know, my typical Sam Stadium run, and here comes the Hannah and Veterans Memorial Show, and you know that offensive 100-point plus, you know, game that's up there, but none better than how the Battle of the Arroyo ended this year. You know, standing on the sidelines, ready to do my post game and talk about how Harlingen beat San Benito, and here they come. Touchdown. Hey, they're in it. Hey, another touchdown. And then the game winner. So that's got to be my top game right there.
Yeah, the Battle of the Arroyo was unbelievable. It heralded Dan Gomez's first year here. You know, they have to look at it as a success with what San Benito did. That was an incredible game to watch, incredible game to cover, and the Battle of the Arroyo will definitely always be remembered. What are your thoughts, Greg? What about what games of the year do you remember the most? What were your favorites?
Well, there's a few. Of the ones I was at, Weslaco and Weslaco East, just for the intensity. Those guys, I don't think they like each other very much, and it showed.
You got that impression.
So that was a fun one to be at. McAllen High and McAllen Memorial, obviously two very talented teams going at it. That was a fun one to watch, even though Memorial kind of took control early on. And then I think to one I wasn't even at, but Sherryland and Edinburgh Vela, just for Vela trying to sort of prove themselves this year after no wins and then 5 wins. How close they came to knocking off the traditional power, that was a game to see from what I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking at Tinaco Bowl 3 right there. Weslaco has now leads that series 2-1 going into next year. That's something we'll be talking about. One of my favorites to cover, you know, I wasn't at the game, but man, was I keeping close tabs on it. How about that playoff game between Roma and Mercedes? Roma's very first ever playoff game, and man, did they make it count, coming from behind. And Mercedes was on a 9-game win streak, and for what Roma was able to do in this game, to come back, to tie it, to take it to overtime, and then to win it in overtime in their very first ever playoff appearance, that has to be one of the games of the year in my opinion. Let's talk about Valley MVPs right now, and here's my ballot. I didn't get a chance to make up you guys' ballot, but from talking to you, I get the feeling that this is kind of the way you're looking at it too. Trevor Spates, obviously, with the incredible season he had, over 2,300 yards, over 2,600 yards, I should say, 2,655, I believe, was the final count. Lupe Marone and his season at Weslaco East. Danny Elizondo, I don't think Rivera gets where they're going without him. Joe, what are your thoughts on MVP for the year?
I like the list of 3 there, and I like Elizondo where he's at because of the way he led the team. I like Lupe Marone just for proving everyone wrong, if nothing else. And then I like Trevor Spates because, again, second year in a row. Every team went into their football game scheming that how can we contain this guy? How can we slow him down? How can we, you know, not let him run all over us? And yet he did. So, you know, there it is. You scheme against him, everyone's playing against him, and he still does it. Trevor Spates, and look out, he's going to do it again next year.
Thank goodness he's just a junior. We get to watch him again next year. The Arizona commit going to be getting it done. What are your thoughts on MVP, Greg?
Yeah, I appreciate that you put 3 guys on the ballot. That's nice, but to me it's a one-man race. It's Trevor Spates. Just, you look at the numbers he put up, probably more than I think anybody in a season in the history of the Valley except for maybe one. So
except for Meshach Rivas.
Yeah.
Except for Meshach Rivas with Weslaco. That is the most. Let's go ahead and talk Coach of the Year. And when you talk Coach of the Year, these are the 3 guys I think. Now, there are definitely some more guys you can put in here, but at 3, I've got George Pena at PSG North. He took a team that was 0-10 and brought them back to the playoffs. Dan Gomez in his first season at San Benito with a turnaround there. Maggie Requenes, this team was 0-4 when he took over, and it was 1-5 after that. But then this year, 7-4-1 with Palmview, taking them to their very first ever playoff appearance, Joe, Marquinez is my guy.
Yeah, I'll put a check mark next to my vote as well, because he did it, and again, all the other coaches kind of had this, had that, what ifs, but this one was, where'd they come from? It had to be coaching that got these kids in this position, so give it to him.
I know you like Marquinez as well.
Yeah, I love what he did with this team, because I think when I try to pick a Coach of the Year candidate, I look at a guy where you can see his impact specifically, and you talk about this used to be a spread team. He comes in and he says, this year we're going to run the ball a ton, and they obviously have a lot of success doing that. You know, he had to bring in some new assistants. He had to change a lot about the way they do things, and you see the results. So I give a lot of credit to him, and that's why he's my guy for Coach of the Year.
All right, guys, that is it. 2014 high school football season is over. Joe Bowling, want to thank you. Greg, Luca, thanks for joining us this week. Let's talk about what's coming up today on Action 4. NFL Today follows this very program, after which you will watch the Titans at the Texans, and then possibly the game of the year in the NFL, Patriots at Packers. We've got a replay of Sunday Sports Extra coming up tonight at 10:30 as well. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Vine, all at Action 4 Sports. You can see all the highlights and post-game from the games we just talked about right now on valleycentral.com, and this program will be up on valleycentral.com a little later today. For Joe Bowling, for Greg, Luca, I'm Clay Williams. Thanks so much for joining us this year on Sunday Sports Extra. We'll be right back to do it again coming up next fall.